राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जना वल्लभ Krishna Pat Paramahamsa Parvijagacharya Ashtottara Shata Shri Srimad Srila Abhay Chandravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Nama Acharya Srila Thakur Haridas Ki Jai Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kunda Radha Kundigiri Vardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Ganga Devi Ki Jai Gunamayi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Rani Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Hrinama Sankirtana Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Iskan DVT Samsthapak Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Go Premanande. All glories to the Sum of devotees. All glories to the Sum of devotees. All glories to the Sum of devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone for coming today, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to say a few words about Krishna consciousness. We don't have a lot of time, but we've been asked to say something about Vrindavan. Vrindavan is where I live, and also about Srila Prabhupada. That's where Srila Prabhupada also lives, eternally. And from where he came to this Western world to distribute the science of Krishna consciousness. 500 years ago in West Bengal, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared, and his teachings have been summarized in a very eloquent Sanskrit verse from one of the commentaries on the Srimad Bhagavatam. Aradhyo Bhagavan Vrajesha Tanayastadhama Vrindavanam Ramyaka Chirupasana Vrajavasuvargena Ya Kalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanamamalam Prema Pumartho Mahan Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhor Madhamidam Tatradaro Naparaha. That means that the supreme worshipable personality of God is Sri Krishna, and his eternal abode is Vrindavana. That method of worship, which was executed by the gopis of Vrindavan 5,000 years ago, is considered to be the topmost mode of worship of the Supreme Lord. The spotless evidence is the Srimad Bhagavatam, and this is the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for which we have the greatest respect. So Sri Krishna is the Supreme Lord. I think everybody who's here probably has some idea about that already. And he has his eternal abode because God is a person. We say Supreme Personality of Godhead to indicate that God is a person. Just like you and I are persons. He has feelings, he has desires, he has activities, he has associates, and he has his own abode. That abode is called Vrindavanam. And in this material world, there is an embassy of that spiritual realm, 90-something miles southeast of Delhi, also called Vrindavana. It was 5,000 years ago in that place that Lord Krishna appeared and performed his superhuman pastimes with the express purpose, with the exclusive purpose of attracting you and I. Because when Krishna does things, Krishna acts as if he's an ordinary human being, but he's doing things in such a superhuman way that nobody can deny it, or nobody can resist it. He's so attractive. The very name Krishna means he's all attractive. So Krishna performs his eternal pastimes actually in this place. Even today, Krishna remains in Vrindavan. Even today, Vrindavan itself remains there. And it's just under the surface of what we can perceive with our gross material senses. And that's because Krishna is actually perceived only through pure love, pure devotion. Anyone who's read Bhagavad Gita, you may have heard already, Bhaktyamana Vijanati Yaganyashchashvitatvataha ityadi. Krishna says as much there. That if we want to understand him in truth, we have to adopt the process which is bhakti. Even if you want to make friends with someone on Facebook, that person has to accept you. Otherwise they push the later button. Okay, so this is Krishna's position as well. Krishna, he reserves the right to not reveal himself to just anybody and everyone. We have to demonstrate that we have an attitude of service. And then he will not only reciprocate with our service, but he will pull us into a deeper world of love than we could ever imagine. And that is the reality of Sri Vrindavan Dham. So even today, Krishna is ready to reciprocate with us, if we choose, to chant his holy names, because that's the main method of devotional service in this Kali Yuga. It has to be easy, because none of us has very great qualifications in this day and age. So it's very simple. We just have to chant this Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If you do this with the right attitude, and if you try to pray to Krishna that please take me home, now I have the opportunity as a human being, while it lasts, please pull me into your realm, then he will do it. There was a great poet named Vidyapati. Anyone heard of the name Vidyapati? Famous Maithili poet. So he said very nicely, Madhava Bohuta Minati Karitoy. I'm praying to you, Madhava, very ardently. Dei Tulasi Tila, Deha Samarpino, Dayajani na Chara Vimor. That means just my whole life is like a tulsi leaf I'm offering under your lotus feet. My life is like that. But please accept me. I know that you're merciful. I know you won't kick me away. And he says, if you consider my qualities and flaws, you'll see that I have only flaws. But you're known very widely as Jagannath, the Lord of the universe. So you should not leave me out of this universe. You're also my Lord. You cannot erase this relationship. You can efface it, but you cannot erase it. And he says, Kiye manusho pashupakhi je janamiye. You can make me a human being, maybe you'll make me an animal or a bird, athava kita padange, or you'll make me some kind of insect or flying, bug of some sort. Karma vipaki gata gati punah punah. Matirahutva parashange. That means, although I keep blowing it birth after birth, I keep wasting my opportunity to become Krishna conscious, still, he's saying that please keep my mind at least on you. Wherever I may take birth, at least let me keep my mind upon you. And finally he says, Bhanaye Vidyapati Atishaya Katara. Vidyapati comes in front of the Lord and he's completely ashamed. And he's praying humbly, abjectly, he's praying that please take me this time. Atishaya Katara. Taraite iha bhavasindhu. And tua parapallava kariyavalambana tila eka deha dina bandhu. So beautiful, he says. I'm offering myself at your lotus feet. After all, I'm just a little tulsi leaf. Why don't you please accept me? Vidyapati. If we come to the Lord with this attitude and pray very ardently, that make me your servant, let me to witness that this is the prediction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that everybody in every town and village in this world will take to Krishna consciousness, Sankirtana, and Prabhupada saw it happening right in front of his eyes. And maybe he also considered that he was perhaps the divinely accredited agent to actually affect that. But at any rate, that was the fact. What happened after Caracas? And a week or two later, he came to Atlanta, Georgia, where I just came from also. In Atlanta, Georgia, he saw all the young Americans dancing with their arms raised, chanting Hare Krishna in the top of their lungs. And he was thinking of a Bengali song written by the medieval poet Lochan Das Thakur, who says that Parama Karuna Pahutu Ijan Nitai Gaurachandra. The most merciful are these two brothers, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda, who inaugurated this Sankirtan movement some 500 years ago in West Bengal, as we've mentioned. And he just was marveling to consider this, and he went into ecstasy. He just fell silent. And tears were shouted, were as if from a syringe, were just forcibly coming from his eyes. And devotees, they didn't know what to do. The whole room went as dead as a pin drop. You could hear a pin drop. And after some time, Prabhupada just told them to chant Hare Krishna. My point is this. Srila Prabhupada took such great pains to deliver us all, to give us all the process of Krishna consciousness, or to remind us that we already have the process of Krishna consciousness, as the case may be. Either way, he sacrificed his life for Krishna, because that is really what the love of the gopis of Vrindavan is about. They are doing anything they can do to satisfy Krishna in Krishna's eternal pastimes, all these gopis. And Srila Prabhupada did the same thing. So, koi fark nahi. He's on the same level of pure devotional service. So we also have this opportunity. Maybe it's only on every Sunday afternoon in the beginning. Maybe we're just beginning to hear something and maybe we're not even hearing yet. Maybe we're just curious. What's this? That begins faith. And Adav Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sangot Bhajana Kriya. Rupa Goswami has nicely elaborated the scientific process called bhakti. It's scientific. Why scientific? Because if you take the theory, if you apply that theory in the experiment, you will get the result. Zarur. There's no doubt about it. And that is what we're doing in the beginning. We may be at whatever level we're at, but faith is nourished by this process of satsanga, associating with other persons who are trying to better themselves, and associating with others who are chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and associating with others who are hearing something about Krishna from these authorized Vedic literatures like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, etc. And taking prasadam, of course, seeing the beautiful forms of Krishna and Srimati Radharani and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also. So if we take up this process, and it will increase upon itself. This is the nature of bhakti. It's a beautiful thing. Rupa Goswami says bhakti is just like the water of the ocean. The sun is evaporating water from the ocean. It's distilling it in the form of clouds, drops it onto the land. The land, it runs into or snow is in this part of the country. And when it melts and it runs down into the streams and rivers, where does it go? It goes back into the ocean. In the same way, bhakti increases upon itself, just like that. You perform a little bit of bhakti, that bhakti comes back and fortifies whatever little bhakti you have. It becomes stronger and stronger. And hote, you become free from all of your bad qualities, and you become very fixed in your devotion. You develop a taste that cannot be described or compared to anything else. It's not like any other taste. That's called ruchi. Naturally, you'll become addicted or attached to that taste. That's called asakti. And that attachment matures if you continue this process of chanting and hearing about Krishna and serving the Lord. It matures into what? Bhava. Bhava means the dawning of real love, pure love, the love that we all seek erroneously in other places. Have you noticed it doesn't work? It doesn't work. Even if it does work, you can't hold on to it, and that's why it doesn't work. Nothing else is eternal. Only this love is eternal, because only this love is what you are. Shraddhamayo yam purusha. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, you have this little faith, this is you actually. So, then that bhava matures into prema. In chapter 4 of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Vita raga bhaya krodha manmaya mamupashataha bahavo jnana tapasa puta madbhavam agataha. What does that mean? Anybody know that verse? What does it mean? It means when we're purified from our attachments, from our fears, and from our frustrations. When we're purified by these things. How are we purified? By the austerity that is knowledge. Knowledge is austere because you have to first acquire it, then you have to apply it, and then you have to share it. At all three stages it involves austerity. It's not an easy thing. But nothing good really comes without some difficulty. So, austerity is always a good thing. So, Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha Manmaya Mamupashitaha, Krishna is talking about many people in the past have done this. They have become purified by this austerity of knowledge. And when they're purified, what do they get? Madbhavam Agata. We've already mentioned Bhava Bhakti. They get that. That Bhava Bhakti is so sweet it cannot be compared to anything else. And this is being given to us for free. Rupa Goswami glorified Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Namo Mahavaranyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto that Gauranga, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he's giving us pure love of Godhead, prema, for free. All you have to do is take it. The analogy is given if sometimes the zamindars, very wealthy zamindar, if he becomes drunk, he may open his treasury and just start throwing things out free. Everybody in the vicinity. Catch. So this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was drunk with his own compassion, you can say. Krishna in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's drunk with his own compassion, and he's just throwing out love of Godhead freely for anyone to take it. If you just happen to be there and willing to hold on when he throws it your way, you're in. That's all it requires. Everyone sitting here today has received this benediction from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As we say in English, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Be grateful. Because anyway, we're all going to die. You know who said that? John Maynard Keynes. Any economists here? He said in the long run, because economists are all speculating in the long run, right? He said in the long run, we're all dead. So what's going to happen before that? And maybe more importantly, what's going to happen after that? You have to think about this because it's reality. So this is going to happen. So we have been given such a benediction. We can't really appreciate just yet. But after we begin to chant for some time, after we learn a little bit about this, and after we experience the taste that comes when you try to surrender to Krishna, then you realize what a benediction it is. So out of compassion only, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has deputed his pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada, to come and share this with us, the nectar of Vrindavan Bhakti, Praja Bhakti. And it's available for all of us, any of us. We can take it for free. So this is a great opportunity. We're all human beings. Please take advantage of this. Chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. How many people are already chanting? Please raise your hand. Okay, a fair number. If those of you who are not chanting, consider. Take up this chanting. Just consider in your mind, what is it that these people are talking about? The nectar of the holy name. What is that nectar? Are you curious? Try it. As we say that it's like a bottle of honey, jar of honey. You cannot understand the taste of honey without opening the jar and just tasting it. That's the only way. You can't take pictures of it. You can't write reports on it. You can't do research on it. You can't interview people that have taken it. You just have to eat it yourself. This chanting is like that. So we heartily invite everyone, please, if you're not chanting Hare Krishna already, please consider doing so. And we have so many books, as we said already. Srila Prabhupada, at the age of 70, he came to this part of the world and he's preaching Krishna consciousness. While he's preaching during the day, all night he's translating more books. Those books are here now, 60-something volumes. Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Ishopanishad Bhi, so many. We can take advantage of these literatures, and we should. Because it's not enough just to chant, you have to know how to direct that chanting. And you have to know why I'm chanting. What is the significance of this chanting? So these books are very valuable for that. And everybody eats, so please take prasadam. You will take prasadam, that's why half of you are here. So this is also an important part of our process. Krishna knows we have to eat, and so he's arranged a very wonderful system. You give something to him to eat, he returns it to you. If you give something to someone else to eat, you don't want what's returned. So this is Krishna's mercy. Therefore we call it prasadam. Prasadam means mercy. In Krishna prasadam. Do not underestimate. Mahaprasada Govinde Nama Brahmani Vaishnave Salpa Punyavatam Rajan Vishvaso Naiva Jayate. Persons who are not pious enough, they cannot place their trust in the potency of Mahaprasadam. Neither can they place their trust in the potency of the holy name of Govinda. Neither they can trust the Vaishnavas or the Brahmins. It takes a little piety, but I think most of you have that piety. That's why you're sitting here. So invest that trust, invest your faith in these things, in the holy name, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and in Mahaprasadam. And you will see for yourself what is the result. Nobody has to tell you. Pratyakshaavagamam dharmyam susukham kartam avyayam, Krishna says. What does that mean? Pratyaksha pramana. Directly, you will directly experience. If you're eating, nobody has to tell you when you're hungry. Right? Nobody has to tell you that you're satisfied. You know. So similarly, when you're chanting Hare Krishna, when you're hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, when you're taking prasadam, you will experience the result. People who do these things, they get a result that is not available to people who do not do these things. That is the fact. Krishna says in chapter 15 of Bhagavad Gita, Yatanto yoginashchainam pashyantyatman yavastitam yatanto prakatatmano nainam pashyantya chedasaha. Those who are following this process, they see everything clearly. But those who are not following the process, they can't see things so clearly, even if they try to see. They still can't understand. I have personal experience of this, I mentioned already. That I had actually read many editions of Bhagavad Gita before I came to ISKCON, in English. And honestly, I have to admit that I did not understand those editions of Bhagavad Gita because the publishers of those editions also did not understand them. Because it has to be accepted in Guru Parampara. And Srila Prabhupada finally, for a change, Srila Prabhupada decided, let me be transparent. Let me just say whatever my predecessors have said. I'm not going to add anything. I'm not going to subtract anything. I've got no agenda here. I'm just trying to serve. In other words, Srila Prabhupada is a pure devotee. Pure devotee means no personal agenda. And therefore it made sense. When I read Bhagavad Gita as it is, everything was very clear. Every question was answered. It was like as if somebody turned on the lights. In the beginning, I have to admit, I was very apprehensive. I thought, what is this? Bhagavad Gita as it is. Who does he think he is? What about all the others? Is this the only guy who's done this? I was thinking like this. But then I read it, and it was like an explosion in my heart and in my intellect as well. And in the roughly half century since then, I've experienced that. I've read all the original commentaries on Bhagavad Gita, all the major commentaries, in Sanskrit, and compared those to what Srila Prabhupada has written, and I could see very clearly, proof. Srila Prabhupada is just saying whatever this whole tradition has been saying for how many centuries? You see? Therefore, as it is. Bhagavad Gita as it is. Ek Bhagavad Gita, how many Bhagavad Gitas are there in society? लेकिन एक Bhagavad Gita की कोई विशेष शक्ति होती है कि it can change people's lives. And we've seen that. What is Bhagavad Gita meant for? Everybody agrees, Bhagavad Gita, there are so many different ways to interpret Bhagavad Gita. But at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, what is Arjuna going to do? What's he going to do? Tell me. What is it expected? What's expected of Arjuna at the end of Bhagavad Gita? What is he going to do? Is he going to go sit and smoke ganja? What's he going to do? He's going to fight. That's what Krishna, the whole Bhagavad Gita is meant to get Arjuna to fight, to do his duty. But not just as a matter of pleasing himself, but as a function of his eternal bhakti, his eternal love for the Lord. So Bhagavad Gita is actually meant to change us. It's meant to pull us out of this suffering that we are so much drowning in. And it's meant to change our hearts. And it's meant to turn us into pure spirit souls. I mean, not turn us into that. We already are that. But it's meant to enlighten us, awaken us to that reality. So, one Bhagavad Gita has the potency to do this. If Bhagavad Gita is meant to make someone Krishna conscious, and you see so many Bhagavad Gitas that are not making anybody Krishna conscious, but there's one Bhagavad Gita which is making hundreds of thousands of people Krishna consciousness, you don't have to be a philosopher to figure this out. It's common sense. So, I feel very fortunate that I was a recipient of this Bhagavad Gita a long, long time ago. And tried to take advantage a little bit to whatever extent I can. I'm still working on it. But therefore, I'm encouraging all of you, please consider there's something real here. And otherwise, you cannot hang on to something artificially for so many decades. It's not possible. There has to be something really deep. So just find out for yourself. As I said, it's like honey. You have to open it up and taste it. Nobody else can really convince you. So this is proof of the pudding is in the eating, as George said. So please chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. I don't know how much time I've been allotted or what time it is or how much of it I've spent, so someone has to tell me that.
Another 10 minutes?
Okay, so maybe then we can stop here and ask if anyone has any questions or any comments. Even if you have challenges, it's good. Yes, sir.
And Hare Krishna, and if this is unrelated, please let me know. I'm just curious, like what are the similarities and differences between, let's say, paganism and Krishna consciousness?
Okay, what are the similarities and differences between paganism and Krishna consciousness? I'm sorry that I can't really comment authoritatively on paganism. I don't know enough about it. But Krishna consciousness we've been explaining. Does anyone else have any questions or any comments? Yes, please.
Benefits of building a new temple.
Benefits of building a new temple. Well, in case you haven't noticed the signs, well, you don't even have to look at the signs. You just look around you. This temple is getting small, isn't it? Seems to be a little bit tight in here. We would like to have a new temple for Shri Radha Madhava. Isn't that wouldn't that be a nice expression of love? If our purpose is to love Krishna, then why not buy them a new temple? Do you think they would like to? Would you like to live in this building forever? Maybe not. Right? So, they deserve a nice temple. And that is one way in which we can serve Krishna. There are so many ways to serve Krishna. That is a very important one. Why? Because if people come to visit a temple, which they always do, then their minds also can be infused with spiritual inspiration. They can feel some soothing relief from the pangs of the daily existence, which is so difficult. And on top of that, I should add, very cold here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I'm from Los Angeles. I can't handle this weather. And this is summertime. Actually, I just came. When I was in Vrindavan a few weeks back, the day before we left India, I was hanging out my laundry. And when I finished hanging out my laundry, I began collecting my laundry. Like about 45 top. So it's a different environment, for me at least. So yeah, anyway, the point is that when we have a temple, then we have a shelter to come from the onslaught of material miseries. What kind of bad news have you got today? Somebody got cancer? Have you had a car accident recently? Your colleagues at work are envious and giving you a hard time? Or maybe your girlfriend just dumped you? What is it? Everybody's suffering from something. Everybody's suffering if they're honest. Even if they're dishonest, they're still suffering. It's just they're dishonest. We know they're suffering. They don't know. So the temple is a great shelter for so many people. And people can come not just to see the deity, although that's glorious. And who is more beautiful to see than Sri Sri Radha Madhava? Sri Sri Radha Madhava ki. Jai. So we also can come and hear the sounds of kirtan. We can, the holy names of God. We can hear the transcendental knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, and it can help us to deal with the material energy and all the suffering that entails. It can allow us, it can liberate us actually. Temple is the vehicle for spreading Krishna consciousness. We should all do our part to try to build. Yes, way in the back you have a question.
Yes. My question was...
George Segolier.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
So my question was around, I was reading this book by Srila Prabhupada.
Which one?
That's what I'm trying to remember, but it talks about why somebody should read the Bhagavad Gita.
Okay.
And Srila Prabhupada really explains it so well. He says, we have to know who God is, who living entities are, and what is the Prakriti, right? Which is inferior and superior Prakriti. But what I didn't really understand is what is the cosmic manifestation and how it is controlled by time, which is what Srila Prabhupada is saying in that book. So before we pick up the Bhagavad Gita, we should read and know why we should read that book. So maybe if you can talk a little bit about what is this cosmic manifestation and how it is controlled by time. Thank you.
That's a very complex topic, unfortunately.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah, it's not so easy. Here's what you're talking about is there's a general umbrella term for what you're talking about. It's called Sambandha Gyan. We have to know who is who and what is what. And we are spiritual beings. All of us is a tiny part and parcel of God, but a small, small piece. Just like a spark out of the fire, or just like a drop of ocean water compared to the ocean. In this way, a part and parcel of God. But basically the same substance as God. We're also Satchidananda entities. God is also Satchidananda entity. But He's the supreme entity, we're the tiny entity. Now, we have an eternal relationship with God, and that is a relationship of master and servant. Or, more intimately, lover and beloved. But we have become illusioned on account of our small size. For example, it's easy to evaporate one drop of ocean water, but it's not easy to evaporate the ocean. It's easy to snuff out one spark from the fire, but it's not easy to put out a bonfire. Correct? So on account of our small size, we can forget easily what is our eternal relationship with God, and that's what happened to us. That's why we're in this world. This world is a special manifestation of mercy, created by God, only for the purpose of helping us remember who we are, what we're here to do. And how the cosmic manifestation is constructed, how it goes on, all these kind of minutiae is not so important as this essential understanding that while we're here in this life, we have a golden opportunity to reawaken this dormant but eternal relationship that we have, all with God. And we do that by this simple process of Bhakti Yoga. Now, the Bhakti Yoga process is only available when we're human beings. That's a very important precondition. Just like when you're in college, they don't let you take advanced physics class if you've not yet tested out of algebra, introductory algebra. right? There's a prerequisite. So the prerequisite for Krishna consciousness, you have to be a human being. And that's actually a very small minority of all the living beings in this world, because if you look around, there's life everywhere. And there are 8,400,000 different species, according to the Vedic literatures. I think the biologists have not yet counted all the species, but Vedic literatures has at least given categories of species. Lug 8,400,000. So out of those, we have this rare human birth, and human birth alone, it gives us a chance to cultivate knowledge, as this Sambandha Gyan. So we should do that. And when Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita chapter 7, Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prabhadyate. Out of many, many thousands of births as a human being, when somebody has actually accumulated enough knowledge, then he sees that's maybe a good idea for me to surrender to Krishna, and he becomes a devotee at that point. See? So that knowledge is really meant to bring us to the point of surrender to Krishna. Because when we surrender to Krishna in love, as we've been discussing, then Krishna is very happy to reciprocate, as we've also described. So that's really what we need to know while we're here as human beings, and it's best not to get distracted by other things, because the big door can slam shut at any moment, as we discussed earlier today. The human form of life, it's like an elevator. Elevator door opens, how long does it stay open? Not very long, because other people are pushing buttons. It's going somewhere. You don't have to get out of the elevator when the door opens, but it's understood that most people have, some idea of something higher in life. They have some idea where they want to go. So until death comes again, we have a short window of opportunity to cultivate this knowledge and do something to better ourselves, and hopefully go back to Godhead. Is that okay? And we do that by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now, how do we chant Hare Krishna successfully? We do it just like this. Like a child crying for its mother. That's the real attitude that we have to cultivate when we're chanting God's name. That kind of eagerness, that kind of desperation and dependence and attention and focus, that will help us. And it's really that simple. In Kali Yuga, as I said in the beginning, it's been made very easy. Maybe she needs to go outside, if you don't mind, please. Because it's creating a problem now. I mean, so there's only so much we can tolerate. Thank you. I'm sorry. But she is extremely cute. So, yeah, we're all here. We have a short window of opportunity before death happens again. Why do you have to keep dying? Have you thought of this? Why should it be so that everything you work hard to attain is taken away from you, or you're taken away from it? That doesn't sound right, does it? We're supposed to think a little bit. And that's why Krishna says, Jnanavan mam prabhadyate. A person who has thought a lot about it, he considers that, yeah, maybe it's true what they say. Okay. Anyway, so yeah. Any other questions or any comments? Yeah? Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Please.
Prabhuji, you explained us about Bhagavad Gita as it is, but there are some good stalwarts in the past has already done the commentary, right, on Bhagavad Gita as per their understanding. So when we looked at those stalwarts or those rishis, right, like for example, in Ramcharitmanas it says that Jaki rahi bhavna jaisi Prabhu Murat lagi tini taisi, or else it says that like in Sanskrit there are so many other slokas say that the Brahma is one, but it can be perceived in a different way. So isn't that the idea that you get a Bhagavad Gita and you perceive the way you want to perceive based on your spiritual level?
Yes and no. The fact is that depending on our spiritual advancement, we will understand Bhagavad Gita in different ways. But some ways are correct and other ways are not correct. That's the problem. So, for example, Krishna says, Janti Deva Vrata Devan, Pitrin Yanti Pitravrataha, Bhutani Yanti Bhujepyo. Right? Hare Krishna, Jai Shri Radha. If we worship Devatas, Krishna says, we'll go to the Devatas. And if we worship ghosts, we'll go to the ghosts. If we worship the Pitris, forefathers, we'll go there. But if they worship me, they'll come to me. So it's not that all the paths are equal. People have their different interpretations of Bhagavad Gita, as I said. But the fact of the matter is that Krishna wants Arjuna to fight. That we cannot forget. And that fighting is analogous to surrender, to engaging as a pure devotee in his loving service. That's the real purpose that Krishna wants to serve by speaking Bhagavad Gita. So we shouldn't get distracted by everybody's personal opinions about what Bhagavad Gita is meant for or what it means. Because Krishna has his opinion and his opinion matters more than ours. Because there's a supreme God and it's not us. Can I be more clear than that? Okay. Thank you. Yes, you raising your hand? Okay. Dr. Maikara, he had.
Well, Prabhuji, you said that if we make a bigger temple, Krishna will be happy. But he says in Bhagavad Gita that don't rely on materialistic things. So how can he will be happy?
Very nice. Krishna says in chapter 4 of Bhagavad Gita that even material things become spiritual when they're offered to him. So these are bricks and mortar. These are, wood and lights and, plastic and whatever else this temple is made out of. Yes, it's material things. But when we offer that to Krishna, then it becomes spiritual. It looks to be, it's still, tangible, but it is spiritualized. It's a little bit like this. If you take an iron rod and hold it in the forge for a long time, then throw it onto a pile of dry straw, what will happen?
And they will melt.
Huh?
They will melt
It will burn. It will set a fire. The iron rod isn't only an iron rod, but it's acting like fire. And in the same way, this material energy in the form of this temple, it's maybe made out of material things, but if we're engaging that in Krishna's service wholly and solely, then it acts as a spiritual thing at the same time. So it's actually a spiritual thing, not just a material thing. Very nice question. Very thoughtful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yes.
Thank you so much for visiting us. When will you return?
Hare Krishna. जब राधा रानी की इच्छा होगी देखा जाएंगे. Torpor, I'm coming to the Western world from April to June, almost every year. Last 3 years we've been sitting in Vrindavan only because of the pandemic, but now we've come out again and touring around all over the place and haven't gotten sick yet, so hope that continues. Thank you. Anything else? Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for the great lecture. And I wanted to know, there are certain processes which we should follow. Like when we come into the temple, maybe bow down to Prabhupada first and then Krishna in a certain way, or certain processes which are been set up. So how does, if one follows those processes correctly and if the other person doesn't, how does it negatively impact us, or what's the difference if someone doesn't do it properly and just comes in and prays?
Yeah, it doesn't. These are not essential things. The technical details are technical details. The principle is that bowing down is that I'm surrendering to you. At least in the beginning, it's not that important. But there is a certain protocol in our tradition. We do things in certain ways, but other traditions do things in a slightly different way. It doesn't really matter. The principle is that the essential process of surrendering to God, that has to be going on. And that's why we're just encouraging everyone to chant the holy names. And then once people start to chant the holy names, and once the purification of the heart starts happening, then Krishna gives intelligence what to do, how to do it, where to go, how to do everything. And that intelligence may be coming from the books, or it may be coming from saintly persons, or it may be coming from the spiritual master. But Krishna will provide the intelligence as we are sincere. Is that okay?
Yeah. So essentially, first just chant and everything will fall in place. Yeah?
Yes, if you chant nicely, if you hear nicely. Two things, hearing and chanting. Hearing from, as we said, the Bhagavad Gita and other books, and chanting Krishna's name sincerely, then everything Krishna will provide further guidance.
Perfect. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All right, so anything else? Nahito, we can stop here. I thank you all very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.